Hey everyone, welcome back. Whew. Been a long day, and it has been kind of gloomy for the last few days, so it's just so nice to get back outside and have the sun, get a little of that vitamin D, and enjoy this. And I mean, well, of course I have to get out and see this. If you have been watching my channel for any length of time, you will know that I like to sign off my videos by saying some version of, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, including to yourself. And today I want to talk about that. Why do I say that? Why do I say, in a world where you can be anything, be kind? Today I want to talk about that. Wow, when the tide comes in, it really comes in fast. I knew it, but every once in a while you really get to see the evidence of it. Anyways, that phrase isn't just something that I say. It is my number one philosophy in life. It is how I try to approach the world. But it isn't something that I succeed at all the time. There have been, certainly in the past, many, many times that I have not been kind. Even now, there are still far too often times when I'm not kind. I'm grumpy in traffic, or waiting in line, or unkind when I speak about certain political figures, or frustrated sometimes at work. I think it is human nature. It's not an excuse though, but I think it is human nature to be that way, feel that way, react in that way. And I do believe that the number one reason that people are unkind, aggressive towards one another, that is because somehow we feel disrespected, and that can often trigger that behavior. The other day, my youngest Shiloh, we were having a conversation, and they were on their break. And while they were on their break, they were approached by a woman, and she said she was from some country, it doesn't matter, and she said that she asked Shiloh if Shiloh had any money so that this woman, so she could buy formula for her child. And Shiloh said, I'll do you one better. We'll go to Shoppers Drug Mart, which is like a drugstore chain here in Canada, and I'll buy you some formula. And so that's what they did. They went to Shoppers Drug Mart, and Shiloh bought a case of formula for this lady. And I was so proud of that instinct, because that is exactly what I hope that I have taught my children. Now, there'll be some of you who will say, that woman didn't want actual formula. She wanted money to buy whatever, drugs, alcohol, whatever. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. You know what? That's not the point. There are a lot of people, and I have been told this actually by one time I gave a fellow some money. I only had a couple of dollars and change, but I gave him that. And this man was walking by and he said, you shouldn't give him any money. He's just going to encourage them, and he's just going to go and buy cigarettes, booze, whatever. And here's the thing. I actually don't care. I mean, certainly I care about these people and, what they need. But I'm not all that concerned about what they're going to spend that money on. And Shiloh's instinct to buy the formula instead of give the money was a great instinct. And she seemed very grateful for the formula. But if she were to turn around and sell that, we don't care. Because when you think about a person who is living on the streets and having to ask for money, whatever they need that money for, obviously you don't want to see anybody who's dealing with severe drug addiction and supporting that. But if you can buy somebody a meal, or you can buy them a hot cup of coffee, or you can buy them a warm pair of socks or mitts or a toque, or some formula, if that's what they're asking for, then you're making a difference. And if they're spending that money on cigarettes or a case of beer, if their existence is so wanting that that's what it takes to get through the next day, I mean, I know that there will be a lot of people that disagree with me, but that's what I'm going to do. In today's world, you don't have to look far to find unkindness, to find people who are actively being unkind to each other or to another group. And here's the thing. We can be different religions. We can be different races, different cultures, different ages, different ethnicities, different social statuses. We can have different opinions. And I might not even like yours very much. But when we forget that that person is a human being, that's where it gets really sad and dangerous. Because at that point we stop seeing the other person, the other group, as not humans, not equal to us. And somehow that makes it easier for people to be and do some of the most unkind things imaginable. Sometimes we need a reminder. And I say that at the end of my videos as much to remind myself as to remind the people watching to be kind. And we also need to remember to be kind to ourselves, because it's easy to believe what people tell us. It's easy to believe what society says. It's easy to believe when we watch what's on the news and social media that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and in some places it is, and that people are inherently evil. I want to remind people, to help people remember, is a better way of putting it, that the majority of people are kind. The majority of people will help. The majority of people won't turn away. Those aren't the people we see on the news or on social media videos. But they're the people that are outside your door. They're the people in your neighborhood. They're the people that you live around. The majority of those people are like you. They're people that when they see somebody hurting, they'll ask if there's anything they can do. When they see somebody broken down on the side of the road, they'll stop and see if they can help. They're the people that when they see somebody suffering, they will offer to buy them a coffee, a meal, some baby formula. Acts of kindness don't take anything away from us. They're so easy because they don't cost us anything. And maybe that's why it's, I feel the need to say it over and over again, because they don't cost us anything. And they make such a huge difference in the other person's life, the person who's receiving that act of kindness. And that person, more often than not, is, and maybe should be, a total stranger, right? It's easy to be kind to the people in our lives that we love. We should be kind to those people. But we should also be, and maybe especially be, kind to strangers. Because those strangers are somebody's mother, father, grandma, grandpa, wife, sister, husband, brother, child. And if your loved one was ever in need, was ever in a situation where they needed help, you would want somebody to help them. It reminds me of something that happened not that long ago, maybe a month ago. I was at the local grocery store. And Saturday, I was getting my groceries and such. And as I was walking in from the parking lot on this side, I saw an older fellow walking in the parking lot from the opposite side. And I noticed him because he had really big white runners. He had to be in his 80s, and he had these great big white runners and shorts. And I remember thinking, like, dude, you're gonna trip up in those runners. They're big runners. You know, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but big white sneakers and trainers, they call them in some countries. Anyways, that's what I noticed. And that, because of that, I noticed what direction he was coming in. And he went into the store before me. Paid my groceries. And as I'm walking out, he's in the parking lot on my side. He's got a grocery bag and he's kind of wandering around and looking around. And I realize he can't find his car. And I walked past him and I said, "Do you need some help finding your car?" And he said, no, I'll find it. You know, it's here somewhere. And I said, okay, are you sure? He said, yeah. And I said, okay. So I go to my car and I get into the seat and I'm watching him and he's wandering around. And I'm thinking, he's never going to find his car because he's not even in the right section. He's over on this side and he came from that side. And I just couldn't. All I could see was the kid's grandpa as I'm watching him. And I'm thinking, he's lost. And the longer he's lost, the more potentially concerned, scared, frustrated, you know, the more anxiety he's going to feel. I couldn't do it. So I got out of my car and I walked up to him and I just said, listen, I know where you came from because I noticed you coming in and you came from that side and I believe you're in the wrong side of the parking lot. I really think you're over there. So why don't we wander over there and we'll find your car. And he said, oh, you think? And I said, yeah, I'm positive that I saw you walking from that other direction. So we walked over there and he had, of course, his car was gray, small SUV like mine, gray, like so many of them. I think it was a Honda or an Element. Maybe that's not Honda. I think, whatever, doesn't matter. So we ended up walking up and down a few aisles, like just sort of around, to find his car. And, you know, I was joking that I do this all the time. He was saying that it was a newer vehicle for him. And so he was, you know, not used to sort of finding it in a parking lot. Anyways, we found his car and he got in it and drove off. And, you know, again, we were just joking. I was just joking that I do this all the time. And I wasn't lying because ever since I sold the ProMaster, the big white van, I do lose my car in the parking lot because I'm so used to looking for the big white van. And so now I have to pay a lot more attention to where my car is. Anyways, we found his car and off he drove. I don't know his name. I know he was grateful that he got help. I would imagine he would have eventually found his car. I just could not leave that parking lot and not help. Not because I'm special and that I want somebody to pat me on the back for it, but just because I could easily see that being somebody I loved. I could not imagine somebody I loved being in that situation and nobody having helped them. So that's what I mean, right? It didn't cost me anything. It wasn't a big thing for me, but it was potentially a big thing for the person I helped. And when we do random acts of kindness, they leave big impressions on the people that we do them to. Some of you may know that when I first moved to the island, I bought myself a little green smart car. I thought I need a little car because I had the ProMaster and I wanted something small to drive around in. That was the worst decision I ever made. That smart car was nothing but a pain. A big, small car, big pain in the butt. Anyways, you know, it had been a very stressful move to the island. I didn't have anybody here that I knew. At that time, I didn't have any friends here near me. Nobody I could call. And it broke down right outside of a shopping area, just outside of Duncan. Just as I was pulling out of the shopping area to get on the road to get back on the highway to get home. It just died. And I was in the intersection, in the turn lane to go around. Luckily, I was turning turning right, dyslexic. And I just sat there and I burst into tears. And I called roadside assistance. And as I was talking to the lady on there, you know, first thing they ask you is, are you safe? Are you somewhere safe? You know, because you're in your car and you've broken down. And I said yes, and I was giving her my information, and I'm trying to do it while I'm trying to stop myself crying. And she said that the tow truck was on the way. And then as I was sitting there, this truck pulls up behind me, and this young couple get out, maybe my son's age, late 20s, early 30s. And they come up to the window and they say, listen, because I have my flashers on, do you need us to just push you around the corner? Because there was a merge lane, and so I could get out of traffic, not be impeding people who were trying to get around. And I said, yes, that would be lovely. So they pushed me around. Didn't take much to push a smart car. And then they asked if there was anything I could do. I said no, that the tow truck was on the way, and they left. It was just so kind of them to do that. You know, 100 cars went around me. Maybe not 100, maybe 50 cars went around me. But that young couple stopped. And then as I'm sitting there, because I had to wait about almost an hour for the tow truck, this car pulls up behind me, and it's these two women. And they had obviously seen me sitting there as they pulled in to the shopping area. And as they pull out, there I'm still sitting. And they stopped, and they came to the window, and they were asking me, was I okay? Did I need any help? You know, did I want them to wait with me? And I was so moved by that, because they didn't need to do that, but their kindness, it makes me want to cry now, because their kindness made so much difference to me. And I said no, because at that point I had gotten a text saying that the tow truck driver was like 15 minutes away. So by this time it's like 7:30 at night. It's starting to get dark. The tow truck shows up, and it's this young guy again, maybe late 20s, early 30s. And he loads the car onto the bed of the tow truck. He, you know, because he put it up on a flatbed. And he said, you know, that he could tow it to the nearest garage. And did I have a way to get home? And I said, well, I guess I'll call a cab, because I don't know anybody. And he said, well, the cabs here are really notoriously unreliable. Like you could be waiting for hours and hours and they might not show up. And I said, well, I don't have anybody else to call. And it's, you know, it's a 25-minute drive. I can't walk it. I guess I have no choice. And he said, well, we're not supposed to do this, but after I've dropped the car off at the garage, I'll give you a ride home. and I burst into tears. I'm in his truck as we're driving to the garage, and I burst into tears. Poor guy. And he's like, no, it's okay. I said, thank you so much. And he said, no, it's okay. And he dropped me off, and as I'm thanking him, he said, no, it's okay. Listen, if you were my mom, I'd want somebody to help you. Which just made me cry even more. And when I got in the house, I just broke down crying. I think it had all caught up to me. The move, all of the stress of the move, the realization that my support network, all of the people that I could have called, if this had been back in Calgary, weren't there. But the kindness of those people, of that young couple who pushed me around the corner, those two ladies who stopped, this lovely young man, just made me feel like things were going to be okay. There was still a lot of shit to figure out. I was still upset, but I felt just a little less alone. And that's what I mean. Those things were not big things in the grand scheme of things, but they were a big thing to me. I hope that when I'm kind to people, that they walk away with that same feeling, that feeling of hope for humanity, and that feeling that it's not everyone against us, and that we are all living this communal existence called life, and that what's happening on the news and on social media is not what we are. Yes, there is that, but it's not what the average person is. We can disagree. We can have different philosophies, but we can also remember that when it comes down to it, we are all human beings with people that we love, with people that love us, and that we will all find ourselves in positions at times where we need the kindness of strangers. Anyways, guys, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, including to yourself. I love you, and I'll see you next time.